Good day, sir. My name is Sunday C. Andales from BSIT3F. And so today I am going to explain my answers from Assessment 1 to Assessment 5. So first, let's begin with Assessment 1. Question number 1. Why is form handling and validation important in web development, particularly in terms of data integrity and security? So form handling and validation are crucial for maintaining data integrity and security in web applications. It ensures accurate data in the database and protects against malicious inputs. So think of it like a gatekeeper for your application. So form handling and validation carefully check everything that comes in, making sure it's safe and trustworthy. Number 2, what are some key Laravel features that help prevent security vulnerabilities such as SQL injection and cross-site request forgery when handling form data? So Laravel includes built-in features like eloquent ORM and prepared statements to prevent SQL injection and CSRF protection to verify request legitimacy. So how does this key Laravel features help? So eloquent ORM automatically sanitizes user input when you use it to interact with your database. This means you are less likely to accidentally introduce SQL injection vulnerabilities. So Laravel uses prepared statements oh, to prevent SQL injection. So this is statements by default when interacting with the database, further reducing the risk of SQL injection attacks. Then the CSRF protection adds a token to every form. This token is unique to the user's session and is verified on the server side. If the token doesn't match, the request is rejected, preventing CSRF attacks. Number 3. Explain how you would create a basic form in Laravel using a blade template and handle its submission in a controller. Include an example of how you would define the validation rules. So here is my example. This example shows a simple form with two fields, which is the name and email. It includes essential elements like the method post, which indicates that the form data will be sent using the HTTP post method. And the action route, this one, specifies the route that will handle the form submission. And then here is the @CSRF, includes a CSRF token for security, preventing cross-site request forgery attacks. And then the name attribute, in each input field is used to identify the data when it's submitted. So the required attribute makes the name and email mandatory. So creating a route, this defines the route that will handle the form submission. So in this case, it's a post route for the URL store. Here is the URL. And then it specifies the controller method store in the myController class that will handle the form submission. So the name store assigns a name to the route, allowing you to use route stored in your blade template. So when creating a controller, this is where the logic for handling the form submission resides. So request validate. This method uses Laravel's validation rules to ensure that the data submitted by the form is valid. And then the validation rules, the example uses required string max 255 and email to validate the data. And then the validate data, ito, the validated data, it represents if validation passes, then the $sign validated data variable will contain the validated data. So the process data, you can now use the $sign validated data to process the data, such as saving it to the database, and then redirect. The code redirects the user to a success page, route success, or displays a success message. So number 4, how can customizing validation error messages improve the user experience in a web application? Provide an example of how you would customize and display validation error messages in a blade template. So here's my example. So dito sa blade template, here, itong error name, this directive checks if there's an error for the name field. And then this one is invalid. If there is an error, it adds the is invalid class to the input field, which you can style with CSS to highlight the error. And then this one, the old name, this helper function displays the previously entered value for the name field, making it easier for the user to correct the error. So, bale, yung error name and error name and end error is the block that displays the custom error message within a div with the class invalid feedback. So, here naman sa controllers, itong $sign request validate, this validation rules, the validation rules are defined sa loob nito, which is ito, the name and email, required string max 255. So you can provide custom error messages within the second argument of the validate method. For example, name that required, please enter your name. Specifies the custom message for the required validation rule of on the name field. So custom error messages provide more specific and helpful feedback to users, guiding them to correct their input. Number 5. What are the benefits of centralizing validation logic in Laravel applications and how does this contribute to the maintainability of web application? So centralizing validation rules in a single location makes it easier to update and maintain your application's validation logic. So centralized validation rules can be reused across different parts of your application, ensuring consistency. So centralizing validation logic in Laravel simplifies the process of managing and updating your application's validation rules, making it easier to keep your code clean, consistent, and efficient. So let us now proceed to assessment number 2. Question number 1. What is the role of middleware in Laravel's authentication system, and how does it help protect routes and resources from unauthorized access? So middleware in Laravel serves as a crucial component in the framework's authentication system, acting as a gatekeeper that filters HTTP requests entering the application. So its primary role is to inspect, modify, or reject requests based on certain criteria, including user authentication status. Number 2. How does Laravel's built-in authentication system handle user registration and login, including the management of session tokens and the validation of input data? So Laravel's built-in authentication system provides a comprehensive framework for managing user registration and login, ensuring both security and ease of use. So Laravel's authentication system facilitates user registration and login through a structured process. So during registration, users fill out a form, and the register controller validates the input data according to the specific rules, such as ensuring the email is unique and the password meets the length requirements. Once validated, Laravel hashes the password for security and stores the user's information in the database, optionally sending a confirmation email for verification. For login naman, users provide the credentials which the login controller verifies using the attempt method. Upon successful authentication, Laravel manages user sessions via cookies and offers a Remember Me feature for persistent login. So security measures include storing session tokens in encrypted cookies and implementing robust input validation to guard against vulnerabilities like SQL injections and XSS. So number 3, explain the importance of security measures like SQL injection prevention and XSS protection in login and registration forms. How does Laravel assist in preventing these vulnerabilities? So security measures such as SQL injection prevention and cross-site scripting protection are crucial in login and registration forms because they safeguard sensitive user data and maintain the integrity of web applications. So Laravel prevents vulnerabilities like SQL injection and XSS through built-in features such as Eloquent ORM and a query builder that parameterize queries and escape user inputs. It also automatically encodes output to convert special characters into HTML entities. So, HTML entities preventing script execution. Moreover, Laravel promotes input validation and sanitization to ensure that only valid data is processed, enhancing overall security. So, SQL injection attacks occur when malicious users input harmful SQL code into fields like login forms, potentially allowing them to access to the database, where they can manipulate or steal sensitive information. On the other hand, XSS vulnerabilities enable attackers to inject malicious scripts into web pages viewed by other users, which can lead to cookie theft, session hijacking, or the spread of malware. So, number 4. How would you create and apply custom middleware in Laravel to restrict access to specific routes based on user roles, such as an admin-only route? So, to create and apply custom middleware in Laravel to restrict access to specific routes based on user roles, you first create a new middleware class using the artisan command. Within the middleware logic, you check if the user is authenticated and has the required role using a has role method, which you implement in your user model. So if both conditions are met, the request proceeds to the next middleware or controller. Otherwise, the user is redirected to the login route or a custom error page. You then apply the middleware to the desired route in your routes web.php file and register it in the app http kernel.php file. So this process ensures that only users with the appropriate roles can access specific routes, enforcing role-based access control within your Laravel application. So this process allows you to restrict access to certain parts of your Laravel application based on the roles assigned to users, ensuring that only authorized individuals can perform specific actions. So number 5. In terms of scalability, how can Laravel's authentication system be adapted to handle a growing number of users and requests? Give examples like session management or token-based authentication. So Laravel's authentication system can be effectively adapted to handle a growing number of users and requests through various strategies, primarily focusing on session management and token-based authentication. So, Laravel uses session-based authentication to track user sessions via cookies. While this method is straightforward and effective for smaller applications, it can become a bottleneck as user numbers increase. So here is an example. So to enhance scalability, developers can implement centralized session storage solutions such as Redis or Memcached. For example, this um, in the config session.php file, you can configure the session driver to use Redis. So this configuration ensures that session data is stored in Redis, enabling a shared session store across multiple servers in a load balance environment. So for applications that require high scalability, especially in API-driven environments, token-based authentication such as JSON Web Tokens or Laravel Sanctum is highly beneficial. Tokens are stateless, meaning they do not require server-side session storage. So here is an example. When a user logs in, they receive a token that encapsulates their authentication information. This token can be sent with each request, allowing the server to authenticate users without maintaining session data. So this method significantly reduces server load and enhances performance, making it suitable for application with a large and growing user base. So using a Laravel Sanctum, you can create a token for a user in your controller, which can be returned to the client for subsequent requests. So with these methods, Laravel's authentication system can efficiently scale to accommodate increasing numbers of users and requests, maintaining performance and user experience. So next is assessment 3. What are the key steps involved in implementing the create operation in Laravel, and how do blade views and form handling play a role in this process? So to implement the create operation in Laravel, first define a model class and ensure that corresponding database table exists. Next is create a controller method to handle form submissions, which involves retrieving, validating, and saving the submitted data to the database, then redirecting the user. Then create a blade view to generate the HTML form, including a CSRF token for security. And then in routes, web.php, define a route that maps the form submission to the controller method using the post method. So this process utilizes blade views for dynamic HTML Laravel's form handling features for efficient data management, ensuring a secure implementation for the create operation. So number 2, explain the importance of data validation and sanitization in CRUD operations. How does Laravel ensure security when handling user input during these operations? So, data validation and sanitation are critical components of CRUD operations in web applications, as they ensure that only accurate and safe data is processed and stored. So validation checks whether the input data meets specific criteria, preventing issues such as data corruption and security vulnerabilities like SQL injection and cross-site scripting. So Laravel provides robust mechanisms for ensuring security during these operations. It includes built-in validation rules that can easily be applied to user inputs, allowing developers to enforce strict data requirements. So, for example, validating that an email format is correct or that a password meets security standards help maintain data integrity and enhances users' experience by providing immediate feedback or input errors. So Laravel's Eloquent ORM automatically protects against SQL injection by logic from user input. So this means that even if malicious data is submitted, it will not be executed as SQL code. So Laravel's blade templating engine automatically escapes output, mitigating the risk of excess as attacks by ensuring that only user-generated content is safely rendered in the browser. So by implementing this validation and sanitization practices, Laravel significantly enhances the security posture of applications, protecting against common web vulnerabilities while ensuring data integrity. So number 3, describe how you would implement the read operation in Laravel to retrieve and display data from the database using both controller method and the blade view. So to implement the read operation in Laravel, you start by defining a model and ensuring the corresponding database table exists. Then you create a controller method that retrieves data from the database using the model and then passes this data to a blade view. The blade view uses blade syntax to loop through the data and display it in a structured format. You define a route in routes.web.php that maps to this controller method, telling Laravel which method to call when a user visits the specific URL. So this process involving the model, controller, and view working together allows you to effectively retrieve data from the database and dynamically display on your website. Next is, what is the purpose of the update operation in Laravel, and how would you handle form submissions to modify existing data entries in the database? So the update operation in Laravel allows you to modify existing data entries in your database, ensuring data accuracy and providing users with the ability to update their records. So to update existing data entries in Laravel, you create a controller method that retrieves and validates submitted data, finds the existing entry by ID, updates the model's attributes, saves the changes, and redirects the user. The corresponding blade view includes a hidden input for the ID, pre-populated fields, a CSRF token for security, and method spoofing for put requests. A route is defined to link the form submission to the update method. So this process ensures a secure and efficient way to handle updates in your database. So number 5, how can you ensure that the delete operation in Laravel is secure and prevents accidental or unauthorized data removal? What role does validation play in this process? So to ensure the delete operation in Laravel is secure and prevents accidental or unauthorized data removal, you should implement user confirmation, strong authorization, and validation. So the validation helps ensure data integrity by verifying the data being deleted and user intent by confirming their actions. Additionally, using soft deletes allows for logical deletion, keeping data in the database for potential recovery, and an audit trail logs deletion actions for accountability. So user confirmation prompts the user to confirm their intention to delete data, while strong authorization restricts access to delete operations based on user roles and permissions. By implementing these measures, you create a secure and user-friendly deletion process that protects your data from accidental or unauthorized removal. So next is assessment number 4. What is the purpose of Google reCAPTCHA, and how does it enhance the security of web applications when integrated with forms? So Google reCAPTCHA is a security service designed to protect websites from spam and abuse by distinguishing between human users and automated bots. So reCAPTCHA enhances security through various methods, including presenting challenges that are easy for humans but difficult for bots, such as identifying images or solving puzzles. So its primary purpose is to prevent malicious activities such as automated form submissions, fake registrations, and spam comments, thereby maintaining the integrity of web applications. Number 2, describe the process of obtaining and registering the CAPTCHA site and secret keys from Google. Why is it important to update the domain when moving from localhost to a production environment? So, to obtain and register Google reCAPTCHA site and secret keys, you first visit the Google reCAPTCHA website and access the admin console. By signing in with your Google account in the reCAPTCHA dashboard, you can create a new site key and secret key by providing a label, selecting the reCAPTCHA type, and entering the domain name where it will be implemented. After agreeing to the terms of services and submitting the information, Google generates the keys for use in your web application. Updating the domain when transitioning from localhost to a production environment is essential because reCAPTCHA keys are linked to specific domains for security reasons. So, using localhost keys on production site will lead to functionality issues as reCAPTCHA will not validate correctly. So registering the production domain ensures that the reCAPTCHA service can effectively protect your application against spam and abuse, maintaining compliance with Google security protocols. Number 3. How would you integrate reCAPTCHA into a Laravel form? Outline the steps from installing the necessary package to adding the reCAPTCHA field in the form. So to integrate reCAPTCHA into a Laravel form, first install the anscobo/no-captcha package using Composer. Next, configure your reCAPTCHA site key and secret key in your .env file. So next is in your Blade view, include the reCAPTCHA widget and JavaScript using the no-captcha : render.js and no-captcha : display methods. Finally, in your controller, validate the reCAPTCHA response using the CAPTCHA validation rule to ensure the user submission is legitimate. So remember to update your domain in the Google reCAPTCHA admin console when moving from localhost to production, and consider using reCAPTCHA v3 or reCAPTCHA version 3 for a more seamless user experience. So by following these steps, you can effectively integrate reCAPTCHA into your Laravel forms, enhancing security and protecting your application from spam and automated attacks. So number 4. Explain how to validate reCAPTCHA responses in Laravel. What role do the reCAPTCHA secret keys play in this validation process? So validating reCAPTCHA responses in Laravel involves verifying the user's interaction with the reCAPTCHA widget using the reCAPTCHA secret key. So when a user submits a form, the reCAPTCHA JavaScript sends a token or response to the server. The secret key is crucial for validation as it acts as a unique identifier for your website, preventing malicious actors from submitting fake responses. So Laravel's CAPTCHA validation rule uses the no-captcha facade to send a verification request to Google's reCAPTCHA service, including the user's response and your secret key. So Google analyzes the response and the secret key to determine if the user is human or a bot. So if the user is verified, the validation passes and the form data is processed. Otherwise, the validation fails and the user is prompted to complete reCAPTCHA again. So by using reCAPTCHA and validating responses correctly, you protect your web application from spam and abuse, ensuring a more secure and reliable user experience. Number 5. So how can customizing error messages for failed reCAPTCHA attempts improve user experience? Provide an example of how you would handle reCAPTCHA errors in a Laravel controller. So customizing error messages for failed reCAPTCHA attempts significantly enhances user experience by providing clear, actionable feedback. So by tailoring error messages to be more descriptive, you can guide users on the next steps they should take, such as retrying the reCAPTCHA or checking the internet connection. So here is an example. So when users encounter a generic error message, they may feel confused or frustrated, unsure of what went wrong or how to rectify the issue. So this clarity not only reduces user frustration but also encourages them to complete the form successfully. ultimately improving conversion rates and user satisfaction. So, in a Laravel controller, you can handle the CAPTCHA errors by customizing the validation messages. So here, in this example, if the reCAPTCHA verification fails, the user will receive a specific error message indicating that the verification failed and prompting them to try again. So this approach not encourages them to take oh so this approach not only informs the user about the error but also encourages them to take corrective action, thereby improving the overall user experience during the form submission process. So last is the assessment 5. So what is the purpose of integrating OTP functionality into a Laravel application, and how does it enhance security for users? Integrating one-time password or OTP functionality into a Laravel application serves to enhance security by providing an additional layer of authentication beyond traditional username and password combination. So OTPs are unique codes sent to users via SMS or email, which are valid for single use or a short duration. So this method significantly reduces the risk of unauthorized access, since even if a user's password is compromised, an attacker would still need the OTP to gain access. So number 2, describe the process of generating and sending an OTP via email in Laravel. What configuration steps are needed in the env file to set up email functionality? So to generate and send an OTP via email in Laravel, you first need to configure your email settings in the .env file. So this involves specifying the mail driver, host, port, username, password, and encryption method. So once it is configured, create a controller to handle OTP generation and sending. So the OTP can be embedded in a Blade email template and dispatched to the user's email address. So finally, define a route in a routes web.php to handle the OTP sending request. So by following these steps, you can effectively generate and send OTPs via email in a Laravel application, sending or enhancing security for user authentication process. So number 3, explain how you can integrate an SMS OTP service using Twilio in Laravel. What configuration are required in the .env file and the controller to send OTPs via SMS. So to integrate an SMS OTP service using Twilio in Laravel, first sign up for a Twilio account and add your account SID, authentication token, and the Twilio phone number to the .env file. Install the Twilio PHP SDK with Composer, then create a controller to generate a random OTP and send it via SMS using the Twilio SDK. So define a route in routes web.php to trigger the OTP sending method. So this setup allows you to securely send OTPs to users' phone numbers for authentication. Remember to verify your Twilio phone number during the trial period to avoid issues with sending messages. Number 4. How can you handle OTP verification in Laravel? Describe the process of validating the OTP and necessary steps to handle success or failure of the verification. So, handling OTP verification in Laravel involves validating the user-entered OTP against stored OTP. First, store the generated OTP securely in your application's database or session associating it with the user. So when the user submits the OTP, retrieve it, and compare it to the stored OTP, ensuring it's still valid and associated with the correct user. So if the validation is successful, mark the user as verified and allow them to proceed. If it fails, display an error message allowing the user to retry. Implement a limit. Implement a limit on retry attempts to prevent brute force attacks and encourages users to be careful. So setting a reasonable timeout for an OTP validity ensures security and allows users to easily request new OTPs if needed. So by implementing this process, you ensure secure authentication and prevent unauthorized access. So what are some key customization options available when handling OTPs, such as error messages or retry attempts, and how can this improve the user experience? So customizing OTP handling in Laravel can significantly enhance the user experience. Providing specific error messages for different failure scenarios, such as expired or incorrect OTPs, helps user understand what went wrong and how to proceed. Designing a user-friendly interface with clear instructions, visual cues, and a resend OTP button improves usability. So, personalizing communication and providing immediate feedback upon successful verification further enhance the experience. So by implementing these customization options, you create a more secure and user-friendly OTP handling process, improving both security and user satisfaction. So that is all. Thank you.